Hey everyone, it's Andrew. Today we're building a dynamic portfolio website with Crocoblock. We'll keep styling light and focus on the essentials. JetEngine for the content model and dynamic listings, single post header and footer templates with JetThemeCore, and smart filtering with JetSmartFilters. We'll also touch on glossaries, repeater fields, custom queries, and other interesting stuff. Along the way, I'll drop in useful tips straight from Crocoblock developers to Croco users, little tweaks that save time and add extra polish and performance, so don't miss anything. We'll work in Elementor, and if you're using Bricks or the WordPress block editor, all core functionalities apply the same way and have been tested there too. By the end, you'll have a homepage with a portfolio and AJAX filters, plus product pages that feel unique even though they're built on reusable templates. If you find this tutorial helpful, please like, comment and subscribe. Let's go! Our plugins are already installed and activated, but I may come back into JetEngine later to enable a few extra modules when needed. Let's start by building two glossaries, JetEngine's reusable sets of options you can feed into fields, filters and forms. JetEngine, glossaries, add new. Name the first one Industry. For the data source, choose Set Items manually. Click New Field for each option and fill in the label and value. Save, then create another glossary for services. Note that we're not using taxonomies in this tutorial, but you could. Taxonomies can hold the same preset options you'd put in a glossary. They work great for filtering and storing CPT info, and they come with ready-made term archives and hierarchies, which are handy for building hierarchical filters. For this portfolio, I'm keeping it simple with glossaries and meta fields, but if you need more taxonomy perks, check our taxonomy tutorials. Now let's build the custom post type for projects. JetEngine, post types, add new. There's not much to tweak in the CPT settings themselves. Maybe the CPT's dashboard position and icon. The important part is adding meta fields. Each time you click New Meta Field in the CPT Builder, you're creating a new field. Give it a clear label, and JetEngine will generate the field name. Choose the field type, and if you want, adjust the field width. That only affects how the editor looks when you're filling out a project. You can also mark fields as the start or end of tabs or accordion sections to keep the editing screen organized, especially if you have lots of fields. For this build, I'll have title and client name fields of the text type, plus a description meta field with the WYSIWYG type for the most comprehensive textual info about the project. I'll add another WYSIWYG for the banner information. I'll also add several fields for images. 3 media fields for the hero image, the client logo and the banner image, and a gallery field for storing multiple images. Then a number field for the year the project was done. I'll add a select field for the client's industry and connect it to the glossary we created earlier. Another field sourced from a glossary will be a checkbox type. This way I'll be able to select and display multiple services completed within one project. I'll also add a repeater field called Accomplishments. This lets us add multiple items of the same type. For example, I'll add an inner text field called Metrics, where I will include the accomplishments for the project, and we will be able to add as many as we want for each one. Finally, I want to add a color picker field. This helps us define a color, say the client's brand color, and use it to dynamically decorate pages or listings where each item appears. While we are here, let's check admin columns. If we add new columns, we can show key data in the portfolio list in the admin dashboard. For example, year, and make it sortable. Industry and a thumbnail image. We can also add a filter to that screen, like filtering by industry values from the glossary, which makes browsing projects much easier for an admin. Now I'm going to add some projects. Filling the fields is straightforward. Text fields you just type. WYSIWYG fields let you style text or paste already formatted text. Media fields let you upload from your computer or pick from the site's media library. The number field is set to whole numbers by default, but you can change that in the meta field settings if needed. Glossary-based fields are filled by choosing from the available options, and the checkbox field lets you pick multiple services. For the repeater, type your text and click Add Item to create another row. The color picker works either by clicking in the palette or by entering a hex code. I will quickly add several projects with my prepared info, and if you're dealing with large databases, there are dedicated plugins to import-export field data to and from spreadsheets, which makes bulk entry much easier. Next, I'll create the listing item that we will use on the main portfolio page and can reuse for any other grids, like if we wanted separate grids for projects sorted by some values. So I go to JetEngine, Listings Components, Add New Item. In the Setup Listing Item pop-up, I set source to post type project, type a name for the listing item, select Elementor as the listing view and hit Create Listing Item. Inside Elementor, I'm starting with a single container and dropping the dynamic image in first. This is one of JetEngine's dedicated widgets for dynamic content, although it's not the only way to do it, and you'll see it in a moment. To point it at the right fields, I select the correct source. In the widget's content settings, the source already shows where media type data is stored on the site, so I pick the hero image meta field here. Next, the title. I'm using JetEngine's dynamic link, so the heading is clickable by itself. In that widget settings, the source dropdown controls where the user is taken after clicking. I leave it as permalink, which goes to the item's dedicated single post. For label, I click the dynamic text button next to the input and select the post title as a custom field. That's the idea with dynamic link. The label pulls a dynamic value from one source and the link URL is pulled from another. I said you can use not only JetEngine's special widgets for dynamic sources. For example, for a title, we could have used Elementor's regular heading widget because it also supports dynamic sources. You can recognize this by the dynamic tag button next to the input. Or let's use a button widget, also a basic Elementor widget, to put values from the industry field. Next to the text input, click the coin stack icon, choose JetEngine, custom field and select the one called industry. Make sure the link field is empty. The advantage here is that the button widget already has styling from Elementor global styles, so you essentially get a ready styled tag. The downside is it doesn't offer the same detailed ways to connect to certain data types or filter the output for the front end. Here's what I mean. Now I'll add JetEngine's dynamic field widget and source it from the description field. Descriptions vary in lengths across projects, but I want the listings to look uniform, so I need to use a callback to trim. Callbacks are available after you enable filter field output. The trim callback isn't available out of the box. First you go to JetEngine modules, and install the external trim string callback module. After that, you'll see the trim string by characters or words option. Another dynamic widget from JetEngine is Dynamic Terms. That's for taxonomies, which we're not using in this setup. It's useful for clickable tags that lead to category archive pages. For example, if we had categories for industries, clicking a term would take us to a page showing listings from that term. And one more JetEngine widget labeled Dynamic is Dynamic Repeater, which I'll use later in the process. Before styling, I click the little gear icon on the top bar to open listing settings and set a comfortable preview width, so I'm designing at the size I expect in the grid. This doesn't change the front end, it just makes the builder preview accurate. I also leave Make Listing Item Clickable off, because my title already uses dynamic link. Now styling. I keep it simple, move the industry tag to the top left corner of the listing by adjusting its position, round a few corners, adjust padding, and bind my brand color field to a few accents. The cart container border, a soft overlay on the parent container on hover, and the background of the industry tag. Anytime the color picker shows a dynamic text button, I can connect it to the brand color meta field. That gives every card a bit of the client's identity. Let's keep building templates. Now we'll set up how single posts for our projects will look and function, and we'll do it with the JetThemeCore plugin. JetThemeCore lets you complete templates and assign them to different parts of the site, specific post types, and various pages. From the main dashboard, go to Crocoblock Theme Builder. You'll see a tree view of the sitemap. Find the slot for the project single, click the plus icon, and you'll get a pop-up where we set where this template will be used. It already targets singular posts for our Projects CPT. What's left is confirming which CPT it applies to. Type All for all items of this CPT and confirm. After you hit Create, you are taken to the Theme Builder screen showing the template structure. For our Project CPT, nothing is filled yet for header, body, or footer. Click the plus on the body area, choose Create Template, pick Elementor as the builder, and give it a name. Now we're building the main part of the template, the content that appears when you open any project as its own single page. So I'm going to build this layout according to a wireframe I put together earlier. Most of the content will come from CPT fields. The static bits that repeat on every project will be things like headings. The design will mostly stay the same except where I connect dynamic brand color values. For some content, I'll reuse the same widgets we used in listings and add a couple of new tricks. One thing about this template: when you start inserting dynamic values, you might not see anything in the preview. To fix that, you have to tie template to a specific CPT item. Go to the Single Settings, Preview Settings, select the correct post type, and choose one of the posts by name. Publish the template and reload. Now you'll see that project's field values as your example. I'm starting by dropping in widgets the same way as before. A dynamic field for the title and the full project description, dynamic fields for client name and banner text, and dynamic image for the first picture on the page, client logo, and the banner image. There's nothing new about setting those up, except the client block. If a client doesn't want their info shown and those fields are empty, I don't want a static client section title hanging around either. For that, I'll enable dynamic visibility. First, turn on the module in the JetEngine settings. Then, on the section that contains the client info, open Advanced Dynamic Visibility, enable it, leave visibility condition type as Show Element if condition met, pick a condition like Exists, and select the client name field. Now if the client name is empty, the whole section stays hidden. For services, I'm also using a dynamic field and sourcing values from the services field. Because that's a checkbox field with multiple values, you'll initially see a warning. You need a callback to format the output. In this case, you can choose checkbox field values, or, since I'm using a glossary for this field, get labels by glossary data to output the option labels, then specify the correct glossary. And if you want each service on a new line instead of one long line, just insert an HTML line break in the separator. Under the banner, I want to showcase the metrics section, which we added on the back end with a repeater. I'll use the dynamic repeater widget here. You'll see the accomplishments repeater in the source picker right away. In item format, replace the default field macro with the name of the inner repeater field. In my case, it's metrics. Now the right values appear. By default, they'll sit in one line. In the widget style settings, I can switch to a vertical layout and style them so the metrics really stand out. Repeater fields can contain more complex structures. For example, I could have added different number of banners for different projects, and each repeater field would have contained rows for banner image and text. Now let's insert images from the gallery. JetEngine's dynamic field can render a gallery as a slider using filter field output images gallery slider. But make sure that module is enabled in JetEngine. Alternatively, you can use Elementor's native image carousel. It supports dynamic sources and works great with JetEngine fields. I'll use the Elementor widget here because it gives me more styling options for images with different sizes and proportions. That's almost all the content I want on the single, except I also want to show other projects from the same industry. I'll add a listing grid, point it to the listing template we created earlier, and leave filtering alone for now. We'll create a related by industry query a bit later when we finish the templates. What else can we do to make singles feel a little more unique and less templated? I'll use the brand color for a few things: the background of the root container, titles color, and the metrics badges. We can also blend dynamic values into static headings. For example, in services we provided, I'll click the dynamic text button next to the title, pull the title field, and add static text before the project name. Same idea for the heading about the related listings. I'll source the industry name and combine it with a short static phrase. I will fine-tune the styling, and that's pretty much the single template done. I'll add a separate header and footer with JetThemeCore. After saving the template, we've got the body of the single page. I go back to Theme Builder, open the project single template, and start creating the header. This one is simple. I set a dark navy blue background, drop an image widget with the site logo on the left. To the right of the logo, I add a couple of text widgets, About Us and Our Projects, that I'll later anchor to sections on the main page, and I add a button with the Email Us label and a Mail To link, so it opens your default mail app or email client. I publish this header and move on to the footer. In the footer, I add the site logo again, a few text links that will point to sections on the future main page, and a column with two buttons, one for email and one for phone. One more thing I want here is a short list of projects in Our Latest Projects column with links. You could do this with a listing grid plus another listing template with titles only and a query ordered by year. But that's quite a few steps, and spinning up another listing grid just for a tiny list isn't great for performance. A better way is to use the dynamic repeater widget to output specific fields from items using any query. which keeps the generated code lighter than a full listing grid. We'll come back to the footer list after we make our queries. For now, I save what I have. Back in Theme Builder, the project single template now has header, body, and footer filled. Next, I'll create a new site template and attach the same header and footer we just built for projects. Now those parts will be used everywhere, replacing the theme's defaults that probably won't match our overall style. Let's build queries now. Queries are saved rules that tell JetEngine which posts to fetch and in what order. If you remember, we need two. One to show related projects by industry on a single page, and another to order by latest year for the footer repeater. To build a query, go to JetEngine, Query Builder, Add New. I give it a name, leave type as Post Query, and in General Post Query I pick my Projects CPT. Then I open Meta Query and click Add New Clause. In Field Key, using the Dynamic Text button, I pick the JetEngine field from the CPT that we want to check, in our case the industry field. I hit Apply, set Compare to Equal, and for the value I want the current post's industry. So again I click the Dynamic Tag button, choose Current Meta Value, and type the name of the industry field. I also don't want the current post to appear in its own related list, so I open Post and Page, and in Post Not In, click the Dynamic Tags button and choose Current ID. That excludes the single you're on from the query results. Now for the query we'll use with the dynamic repeater in the footer. Any post query could provide titles, so technically we could reuse the same one we did before. But I want it ordered by year and limited to just a few items. I built another query, same start, connected to projects. Then I click Add New Sorting Parameter, choose Order by Numeric Meta Value, type the meta key for the year field, and set the order from highest to lowest. I also go to pagination and set how many post titles I want to see in the footer. Let's apply the queries where they belong. First, I open the template for the body part of single post. I open the listing grid's content settings, unroll custom query, enable the toggle, and choose the related by industry query. And if there are no posts related by the industry field, users will see the default no data message. You can customize that text in the listing grid settings. Now the footer. I add the dynamic repeater like I suggested. In the source selector, I choose JetEngine Query, which gives me the query ID dropdown with the queries I created. I pick the one that's filtering by year. In the item format, the default HTML prints just a span with a field name, which I can change to title. But I want each title clickable and leading to the post value. That's the right UX here. So I modify the default HTML. I swap the span for an anchor and macro to output the correct permalink. Now each footer item is a proper link. I'll also tweak the repeater styles. Now I'll build the home page. That's where our portfolio listings and filters will live. It'll automatically use the same header and footer as the rest of the website. Everything in the middle I'm building directly on the page, not through templates. First section is the hero. After that, an About Us section on a contrasting background with an image and a short blurb about the agency. Next comes the portfolio itself. I drop a listing grid and connect it to the listing template we made at the start. I'm setting the post number to 6 for now, so viewers see 6 projects at a time. You can change that or remove the number to show everything, but I prefer 6 with a Load More button. To wire that, I add a button under the grid, give the button an ID, then in the grid settings I enable Load More by click and paste that same ID into the Load More Elements ID field. That's it. Now clicking the button pulls the next set of items. Time for filters by JetSmartFilters. I want filters for industry, service type, search, and a sorting tool for year. The process of applying filters starts in the JetSmartFilters dashboard, and only after that we drop the widgets on the page. So I head to JetSmartFilters, add new, and make them one by one. First, services. I'll name the filter and choose the checkboxes list type, which lets users pick several services at once. The data source is glossary, and I'll set the operator to union, so selecting multiple options expands results, instead of the intersection operator, which would only show items matching all selected services. Next, I enable Is Checkbox Meta field, pick the relevant services glossary, and enter the CPT meta field where services are saved. I'm not setting a default value. Then I'll add the filter label and activate filter label, useful if we use the Active Filters widget. Next comes industry. Here I'll use a select filter so users can filter one industry at a time. This isn't hierarchical, because we don't have categories or subcategories, so I leave that toggle off. Data source is glossary again, this time industry, and in query variable I enter the industry meta key. Now a search filter. I'll set it to search by custom field, and in query variable enter the comma-separated field keys for title and description. So when a user types anything, it looks for matches in both fields. Let's go back to editing the homepage. The filters will sit above the listing grid, so I've added a section for them. We'll start with the search filter. Find the search filter widget, drag it onto the page, connect it to the search filter we just created, and in this filter for choose JetEngine as the provider so it talks to the grid. Same provider and filter wiring is valid for all filter widgets. For this one, I'll set apply type to AJAX on typing with a 3-character threshold. It needs restyling, but I'll handle styling later in one pass. For services, I use the checkboxes filter widget. This type has handy extras when you have lots of options. I'll enable the setting that shows the list as a drop-down to keep it compact. For industry, I'll use the select filter widget. It is set up just like the others and naturally renders as a drop-downs where users pick one industry at a time. Finally, I'm adding a sorting filter. This one doesn't require creating a filter in the JetSmartFilters dashboard. It's configured right here on the page. By default, you'll see 4 generic options, but I'll replace them with just 2, newest first and oldest first. I add 2 items, give them titles, set order by to meta key numeric, enter the year meta key, and then set newest first to descending, oldest first to ascending. 2 more JetSmartFilters widgets I'm adding. Active filters. Once connected to the grid, it needs no extra setup besides styling. And remove filters, which also just needs to be connected to the same grid. Now I'll move on to styling the JetSmartFilters widgets to make them look uniform and clean, and then polish the overall page. What else needs to be done before we say demo site is finalized and ready for testing? When we build the header template, I set with anchor links to sections on the main page. This helps navigation and makes the site feel more user-friendly and professional, even though it's basically one main page plus project singles. Now that the sections are ready, go to the About Us section, open advanced settings of the container that holds it, and assign a CSS ID, lowercase, no spaces. Do the same thing for the portfolio container with a different CSS ID. Now go to the header template. For the About Us and our projects text widgets, link the text using an anchor, your homepage plus a hash and the CSS ID of each section. Do the same linking in the footer as well. Alright, quick recap. We started by shaping the content model. build glossaries for industry and services that sped up the process because they're used for both post-meta fields and filtering options. Then we created the project post type with all the meta fields for project info, plus a brand color so each case can have its own accent. Then we filled in information for many custom post types. We built the listing card with some brand info for a quick presentation of projects in a grid layout. Next, we used JetThemeCore and made the single project template, header, body, and footer, and in the body we dropped in all the dynamic fields and nested a listing grid. We set up two queries, one for filtering related projects by industry applied to the listing inside the project template, and one that orders by year for quick latest first lists, applied to a simple list via the dynamic repeater. On the homepage, we placed the main portfolio listing grid and added filters. The set of filters was created first in the JetSmartFilters dashboard, then connected to the grid with the dedicated widgets in Elementor. Finally, we wired anchors in the header and footer so those links work across all site pages. Now we'll take a quick tour on the front. Let's start with the main thing, the portfolio grid. Cards load in, and when I click one, I'm on the project single page. All the dynamic widgets are pulling data, title, year, images, metrics, exactly what we've filled in. If a project has no client info, the whole client block is hidden, so no empty headings. Scroll to the bottom and you'll see related projects by industry. The header and the footer anchors work. Click About Us or Our Projects, and we jump right to those sections on the homepage. Now filters. Everything's powered by AJAX, so results update immediately. The services filter is set to Union. Check two services and you'll see projects that match either one. Between different filters, it's AND logic. Shown items must match all active filters. By the way, JetSmartFilters also lets you enable indexer feature. It shows how many results are available for each option before you click. If you want to dive into it, we've got separate tutorials on the filtering plugin. And the design looks like we planned. Brand dynamic colors inside singles and a touch of that color on the listing cards, which keeps the whole thing feeling fresh and consistent. So the portfolio is live and fully dynamic, and we didn't write a line of code. We've got structured data, easy expansion with reusable templates, and a solid UX thanks to smart filters and simple navigation links. If you want to extend it, Crocoblock has plenty to offer. Jet Form Builder for contact forms, Jet Menu for multi-level menus, or even JetEngine's Profile Builder to turn this into a membership site where users can submit their own projects. If this was helpful, please like, comment and subscribe. Thanks for watching, happy building!